Go. Hey, hey. Says we're live, Steve. How are you?
Hey, we're better late than never, right?
Better late than never. That dang technology. I'll tell you what. I've been working with it my whole life. I'm one of those rare people that has half my foot in the hey, we didn't ever have the internet, and half my foot in didn't we always have the internet? And so I'm pretty savvy, but sometimes there's a few technical glitches that just perplex me. But I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we're live. And I'm glad you know what these really are, Steve? Let me tell you what I was thinking about. I was actually thinking we're not just doing like a live Q&A here. We are actually putting on a mule and donkey clinic every single week. How many people are doing that? A weekly mule and donkey clinic?
Yeah, it's fun.
It's a lot
It's
of
fun.
fun. We got a lot of good questions today. We actually have a couple great visuals to take a look at. But before we get into that, folks, I want to introduce myself. My name is Dave Shrine. I'm a longtime friend of Steve Edwards. We've been friends over a decade now, and brother in the Lord. Absolutely love spending time with Steve, and love that Steve and I get to come and spend time together with you where you are at, wherever in the world. And that's the first thing that I want to say is make sure you put in the comment section where you're watching from today and what the weather is like. And I am broadcasting today from Chandler, Arizona, and it is, gosh, I don't know. It's a little bit cloudy, but not really. It's pretty sunny. It's heating up pretty good. Steve, how are things out there in Queen Valley?
Well, we got weeds taller than me. You know, it's amazing. We got a little cloud cover coming in. They say we're not going to get any rain until Monday, but these are some pretty serious clouds. You know, we got a saying around the ranch: a new mule and a good rain's always welcome.
Mm-hmm. I'll take it. Yeah, it rained quite a bit out here over the last 2 weeks, and I'm glad to get some sunshine, although it is nice to get that rain because it's not something we get a whole lot of. Hey, I just saw, let's see, David Scholl hop online. We've got David watching. We've got Bear Prince from Texas, Grand Ranch. We've got Tammy Breed from Oklahoma, Kenny Phillips from Louisiana. This is turning out to be a pretty good Facebook here.
All around, yeah.
We got some good ones. So, folks, the way that this works is as you come in, go ahead and just say where you're watching from, what the weather's like there today. We'd love to make sure to give you a howdy, give you a shout out. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comment section. This online clinic is pretty much guided 100% by you. We show up. We've got a few questions that folks have sent in via email. Folks have sent us some Facebook messages about. But the content comes directly from you, and folks who show up here live, that's you watching right now, you get priority. We answer your questions first. So go ahead, put those in there without any further delay. Steve, what do you say we get to it?
Yeah, let's get her done.
All right, so we had a couple questions come in. We had those Facebook issues, but before we switched the broadcast URL, we had a couple questions there. The first one came from Gloria. Now, we shared on your Facebook page, Steve, we shared a picture of, I think it was a Zorse, cross between a zebra and a horse. She says a cross between a zebra and a horse is a Zorse. A cross between a donkey and a zebra is a zonkey. But
Donkey.
are
Yeah.
they both considered mules because they are hybrid? Hybrid, is that correct? So what is the official word there on what these things are to be called?
Well, the Zorse and the Zonkey are both hybrids. The Zorse cannot reproduce, and the donkey cannot reproduce. At least ways nobody has ever told me that they've been able to do it. And of course, the only way you're going to know is going to be DNA testing. Same thing with being a henny or a mule. DNA testing, not a matter of how they look, by any means. So that's it's. I know of some people that have trained on these Zorses and the Zonkies, and I've trained on them myself. They're pretty unique. Sometimes the zebra part comes out, and boy, that can be about nasty, biting, kicking, rascal.
So what makes the zebra side nasty? Are zebras just nasty animals in general?
Yeah, they're just nasty animals in general. You just think about it. In Africa, they got millions of them. Nobody's riding them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah,
That's right. Well, they're beautiful animals. I'm gonna I'm
yeah.
gonna I'm gonna put a picture in the comment section below. Put a link to it. But that was the first question. So Gloria, hopefully that kind of answers it a little bit. The next question we've got here comes from Tony. He sent this question in. He says, Steve, I've got a very nice gaited mule that has no problem with getting up and go. However, it is very hard to stop him. What can you do to help me?
Welcome to the gated world. Unfortunately, horses and mules. Are you using a gated horse bit? We need to see pictures of it. Okay, number one, when an animal is gated, especially if, let's say, Tennessee Walker, that means they're very animated in their front end. What the Walker people do is they elevate their head, and then that drives them down in their hindquarters, which shows a lot of animation in the front end. And unfortunately, what they do then too is they get a hold of the bit and they hold of them really tough, and then they put the spurs on them and push them up into the bit. So the animal is like this, and they're trying to go down the road. They're meant to go fast, and unfortunately, it doesn't make any difference. Even in the other countries, like when I was in Brazil, same thing. They had only one speed, go. They had little to no backup. They didn't side pass, didn't turn on the forehand, didn't turn on the hindquarters, did not have confirmation that would give the mule, the rider, a nice ride, rounding out the back, getting the hind end up underneath them. So going on to this, I'd like to see the bit. Most likely it's a Walker bit. And if so, it is way too much bit for the mule, number one. And number two, the palate is different on the mule compared to the horse as well. So, my bits that I've designed that Rainsman made for me it's my design, and the port sets up in the palate different. So, to tell you, that's the version of looking at the bit and the animal. Now, to fix it, you're looking at, just like anything else, a 6-month program, 4 to 6 hours a week, starting out with my mule rider's martingale, which sits the head, which sets the balance. That comes with a bridle, reins, double twisted wire snaffle bit, and all. The double twisted wire snaffle bit, the mules will respect. It's not harsh. I have demonstrated thousands of times how much lighter the bit is because you don't have to do much with it. So you start out with a surcingle, you get them balanced and framed up. Then after that, you start after about 6 months, around 3 months, roughly 4 to 6 hours a week. Then you start introducing my trail rider bit, and then go from there. It's not a matter of the bit. It's a matter of the hands. It's not a matter of the bit. It's a matter of respect on the mule's part. It's not the mule's problem. The mule is just trying to protect himself because gated people hold on to the reins pretty heavy, put their leg onto them. So all they're trying to do is find a way to protect themselves. And so by stopping them, they get a hold of the bit, tighten all 5 major neck muscles, and get you.
Well, that's good feedback. One of the things that we do, folks, is we take all of these answers that Steve provides, and all these questions are coming in from folks all across the world. We take all these answers, we chop them down into little answers, little videos, and we post them up on YouTube. So I'm going to put a link to our YouTube page where you can go and you can get not just these answers here about how do you get them stopping to go, and then hear Steve talk a little bit about the bits, but also answers to so many other questions that we've put in. And really, we have you guys to thank. Now, Steve, I don't know if you know this, but the folks who are watching, they're actually the ones who are bringing in new mule and donkey folks into the fold, right? Yeah. So what they've been doing, y'all have been fantastic about this, is clicking the share button below the broadcast. It's a little share button with an arrow. When you click that and post to your wall, you're actually bringing new folks in to this Mule and Donkey Clinic community and giving them insight into how they can really get the most out of the animals, and quite frankly, how the animals can get the most out of their lives. And so y'all have done a fantastic job. We're seeing more and more people show up with their questions that, quite frankly, we're grateful that we get a chance to talk about. And so the next question that I have is about feeding, and this one comes from Marcus on Facebook as well. He left a comment below. He says, "Hi, Steve. I have too many donkey jacks that are 6 years old that guard our sheep. How fun. They just eat and guard. No work. Should I be feeding them any type of maintenance grain formula or just keep up with the hay, salt, and water? They look great and fare well in this northern New York climate. Thanks, Marcus from Saratoga Springs, New York. What do you have to say there, Steve? That's a great question.
Yeah, and it is. We got to think about maintenance. It's, when they're out in a pasture, it's like us going to a smorgasbord. There's all kinds of feed there, but not all of it good for us. But going back to the grain, the only time you want to feed any grains is when they need energy. You're going to ride them, you're going to saddle them up, they're getting ready to go out for a 6, 8 hour day, or you're getting ready to harness up them donkeys and go out for 2 or 3 hours of driving. That's when they need the grain. Otherwise, these donkeys have these fat pockets. I was just talking with Susan LeSueur about her mule, how she had a big white spot down on the side. And I said, Susan, run your hand over it. It's a fat pocket. It's along the top of the crest of the ribs. And so to answer your question, no, they don't need the grain. Only time they need grain is when they need energy. And as long as they're up there in New York and they're feeding grass, they're getting plenty of energy building feed for what they're doing. So just let them donkeys be good dark guard donkeys, and they'll fight off the coyotes and the wolves.
That's very cool. That's good. Thank you for that question, Marcus. Really appreciate it. We got a few more folks who are joining us here. We got Pam Costello from Queen Creek, Arizona. That's my neck of the woods. How's it going, Pam? It's good to see you. Good to have you here. We've got Memory Smith Harris, rainy Southern Oregon here. It's nice to have you. When's the last time you were out to Oregon or the Northwest United States, Steve? Has it been a while?
Yeah, it's been about 3 years, I'm thinking. I've got a lot of friends up there. Yeah. A lot of them. I really like to get back up there again and see some of my friends that's up that way.
It sure is it's a great part of the country. My sister and brother-in-law live in Seattle, and every time I go out there, I love it.
Oh, yeah.
It's awesome. Dan Mercado from Oracle, Arizona, watching. Astra Swepson from Stillwell, Oklahoma. Love your Mule Bit article. We just published that. We've been talking about it, Steve. We put it out online, and I can't tell you how many people have found this article online. I'm going to put, I actually think I already put a link in the comment section to it, but you did a great job with that article, and I've heard great things from folks. Let's see here. Next question comes from Tammy Breed. She posts here in the comment section. She says, I've been doing a Tarp training for confidence building. It seems to be helping her, and she is looking to me for guidance. Any other suggestions? That's a good question there. We've seen tarps in training before. You and I, we've even got some pictures of some tarps in training. You want to talk a little bit about what's going on there and what you might suggest as far as training?
Sure. Well, tarps, flags, mountain lions, bears, elephants, they don't really mean a whole lot. It's not desensitizing. What you need to do is understand it's not so much the confidence, but are they listening to you at the end of the lead rope? That's really important, super important. Folks are using these, and we used to call it sacking them out. But the main thing we're interested in is not that they're going to be desensitized against something coming out, but are they listening to me? Are they listening to the herd leader, which has a hold of the reins, has a hold of the lines, or has a hold of the lead rope? I've told folks a lot. I said, do you have a rattlesnake? No. Do you have an elephant? No. Well, how can you desensitize them? Oh, do you have a deer or an elk? No, you can't, you see? And so you can't desensitize them. It's a matter of them having cues, learning and listening to you and going from there. If it builds confidence at all, where it usually does, it builds confidence within us. We're feeling pretty good about it, but we can also feel pretty low. Just, I don't know if you're using my come along hitch, but do everything in threes. One of the downsides of us as trainers, we tend to always overdo it. So today we go 1, 2, 3 with our tarp on the left-hand side, and then 1, 2, 3 on the right-hand side, and I'm just talking about from the front, and then we're done for the day. And now, okay, let's just say the right side was a little more worried. Well, then do a couple more, 1, 2, if that's what it takes. When the animal settles down, we're done for the day. Pick out 3 good ones and then stop. And then a couple of days later, do 3, and they do that well, then do 3 more. Now you've got 6. Build a foundation little by little. The confidence building with the tarp is basically for us.
One of the things that I love that she says there, Tammy, you said something that I really liked. Of course, I'm a city slicker, right? I did not grow up with mules, although I got a picture here I'll share in a second of that we found of me riding mules with Steve.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I've learned from listening to Steve over and over, and Tammy, I'm thrilled that you said this, is that she's looking to you for guidance. And if there's one thing that Steve has said over and over and over, is these animals want a herd leader. They want somebody to guide them. They're looking for leadership. So good for you being that herd leader and continuing to be the one that that animal is looking to for that guidance. Isn't that awesome, Steve?
Yeah, that's what we're looking for. The mule, is not running from you. Is sitting there saying, okay, that's good with the tarp. Now let's do something else. And that's good. Looking for that leadership. You need to be the herd leader. Now you're in their world, teaching them their language. They understand that.
Very good. Thank you for that question, Tammy. I appreciate that. And folks, as you're joining us here, if you've got questions, put them in the comment section. And even if you're just here to watch, there's 2 things that we ask. Number 1, just let us know that you're here. It's cool to know that you're in the room, and just know that we're not alone. Know that you're joining us, that we're in this community together. But also share the broadcast. There's a little icon. It says share. It's a little arrow. Click that button and share it out on your wall, especially if you've got folks following you who are in the equine community. It's not just about getting mule and donkey folks in here, but getting folks who love equine in here and realize, hey, a equine is not just an equine. There's actual real differences here with these animals. And that actually leads me to the next thing that I want to share. Steve, you've got something, you've got a prop today. And I posted this on Facebook a little bit earlier today so people could kind of get a little preview of what we're doing. But you've got a couple props there. Why don't you go ahead and share with us what you've got? Yeah, let's talk about that one right there, because that is an eye catcher. What do you got there?
It's my lunch, really.
This guy's got jokes.
Yeah, and actually, my dog would love to be able to spend time with this. This is the leg, the front shoulder of an antelope. This is the scapula, folks. You hear me talk about scapulas? Right there. That's the scapula. This right here is bone. But this right here, do you see it move? That right there, they call it cartilage. Right there. Right there. It's cartilage. Guess what? When you put your saddle up on the cartilage, do you see what happens? You're folding it over, folks. Do you see that eventually it starts cracking? Looky here. You see that? I don't know. You see that really good, Dave?
Yeah, we see it. I can see that crack, and I can see it bending over.
I never thought about this cartilage. I hadn't thought about it. I was thinking this is setting on bone, on bone, on bone, like this. Every time it comes up, it hits the saddle. But I had a veterinarian, and actually there was 4 of them up there at the Hoosier in Indiana. Hoosier's coming up, folks, in May. But they were there, and they were glued on me. And the one guy spoke up and says, you're exactly right about the scapula, Steve. He says, but here's the thing. What people don't realize is when they put their saddle up high on the scapula, like the picture we saw today, Dave, sitting right up on the scapula, you're bending that thing over, folks, and eventually it's going to crack. So what I've been doing is just kind of been doing this off and on, and eventually, folks, it cracked. You see that? Right there. Guess what you're doing to your mule? When your mule starts tripping and starts cracking, there's a good possibility right there is the problem. The cartilage is breaking away from that cotton picking bone right there. Right there. That right there is the scapula. Now, until I started talking to this veterinarian, I was just thinking bone. I didn't realize how much damage was right there. And I've talked to another veterinarian from Kansas area just the other day, and I was telling her about that. She says, Steve, I didn't think about it. She says, I should know better. But bang, I said, what about the cartilage on top of the scapula? She says, yes, it makes sense. So, folks, I'm telling you, this is major. You got to get this. You got to get the idea of what you're doing to your mule. When you put that saddle up on that scapula, boom, 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 you're tearing down the cartilage. And then going back to the scapula here, every time your saddle goes down a hill and hits that scapula, that's a sharp puppy right there. Can you imagine the saddle hitting that? How much stress you're putting the mule in? And I'll go ahead and be truthful. How much pain you're putting your mule in? So it's important. I've had people say, well, I don't want to have to adjust my breeching all the time. And I say, then go ride a motorcycle. Don't use the brakes, and go ahead and just let go of the steering wheel and see what happens. You're going to have a wreck. Take a few minutes, adjust your breeching, adjust your rear cinch, lift the back of the saddle up and down, let the back get cool off, and then go down that mountain. A few minutes is phenomenal. Look, think about your mule. Think about your donkey. You take a long old steep hill. When you set up that mule, you set up that donkey, you set it up on flat ground. Now when you're coming downhill, the back end comes up underneath them. They go from 5 foot long down to 4.5 foot long, hypothetical figures, and that saddle's going to come forward. Take a few minutes. If you take a break, give your mule a break. Loosen up the cinches, loosen up the back of the saddle, and help your little mule and donkey out.
So I don't know if this is correct or not, but when you sent us that picture, I've got when you sent us a picture of that, I've got a couple folks who I work in the office with, Carlos and Barb, and I said, you guys got to come and see this. And I showed them the text message that you sent, and I said, to me it seems almost like you've got your hand right here, and if you just keep hitting down on your hand over and over, I mean, that's not going to feel too good on your fingers. And we're just talking fingers here. We're not talking the core structure of like your hips or your shoulders or your kneecaps here. We're talking just your fingers, and it's not fun to have that come down, and that kind of made it real for me. I've heard you.
Good point.
But it made it real for me that like this hurts. Imagine all that compounded weight coming down on the shoulder of the animal. Yeah. I don't know, folks. What do you think? Does that make a little bit more sense as Steve goes through it? We've got a few more people joining in here. We've got Haley Williams, Mark Williams' daughter, saying from Virginia, we woke up to 12 degrees this morning, and it's only 28 degrees now. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my. Oh, my.
Oh, goodness gracious. We've got Celeste Daniels here. We got a question from her we'll get to. Kenny Phillips, we'll get to your question, Kenny. Kayla. We've got Kayla Gooner, Kevin Albright, Jen Blake. We'll make sure to say hi to everybody else. I want to get to the next question here. Comes from Bear Prince. Here's what Bear has to say. He says, I just bought my first pair of draft mules. Congratulations, Bear. That's awesome. I've always had horses, and now I'm kicking myself for not getting into mules earlier in life. I'm 16 years old, but better late than never. Are they supposed to be Amish trained? They drive on the ground great. Have not hitched them up yet, though. What tips do you have for a beginner? This is a great one, Bear. Thank you so much for sharing that. Steve, I want to hear what you have to say on this one.
You bet. The Amish give them a job. That's one thing you can say about the Amish, man. They flat give them a job. Do they foundation train them? No. Can you put them in the plow and go to work? Yeah, because they know how. And because they'll hook them up to a mule or a big old horse that knows what to do. The tips, learn how to use your hands. You learn how to use them back and forth. I'd want to ask you what type of bit are you putting on them? It would be very important. Does the wagon that you're hooking them up to, does it have hydraulic brakes? And if so, then load the back end of that thing up with hay, because if they go running off with just a bare wagon, you ain't going to stop that thing. But if you got some weight in it, they'll do it. But the tips, learn how to use your hands. Hey, we got a video, Dave, that's called "Communicating Through the Lines."
Yes, we do. Should I put a link in the
Yes,
comment section?
ought to do that. That'll
Okay.
give him an idea how to use his hands. Most people take bear and they pull on the lines all the time. When you have your hands on them lines, you see how my elbows are bent, slightly bent here like this. Your hands should barely move. I can drive a 6-up with my hands, and all of my hands do right here. My elbows stay in the same place, and I barely move my hands. But you see drivers take up on the lines and pull on them this way and this way. That's hard on them mules. Learn to use your hands to communicate. This right here, when you use your hands like this, you're talking a normal conversation. But when you're pulling and pulling up on lines and jerking on them, you're yelling at them.
So one of the things that you brought up that Bear, hope maybe this will help you a little bit, and other folks who are wondering about line communication and reining and things like that. One of the things, Steve, you said that was really helpful for me was go ahead, sit behind the wheel of your car, and just yank on that wheel and see where it takes you. All you
Yeah,
have to do is just a little subtle here, little subtle there, to get to where it is that you need to go. And that
yeah.
really just opened my mind to, when we're riding, what Steve says is ice cream cones, and then play the tune, and you just ever so subtly move, and if you're doing one hand, you ever so subtly move back and forth, just like you're driving a car, ever so subtly. Did I get that right?
Positive, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Great, Dave.
That was a
Doing
great
awesome.
illustration for me. So I hope that
Yeah.
that helps some other folks, because it does seem a little bit like, well, I want them to go this way. I want them to go like this. But if I remember, it really does some pain to them when
Yeah.
when you do that. They're trying to keep their mouths comfortable, right?
Yeah, right. And I was just talking with a guy today, and we was
Yeah.
talking about building a new foundation. He bought this mule. Unfortunately, it was supposed to be a trained mule. He's got $3,500 he paid for the mule. He's got about another $1,500 he had a so-called trainer work with him. And then he started watching my videos. He thought, oh man, what are we doing wrong? And he started seeing it, which was pretty cool. And then he says, well, I said 6 months worth of training. And he says, 6 months? He says, I can't ride? I said, sure you can, you bet. This is what I want you to try first. Climb in your car, start it, go down the highway, and then don't touch the brake, don't touch the steering wheel, and see where it goes. Go ahead, give that a try. It's the same thing with the mule. You're going to end up with calling 911? Nah. Fix it. Make it right. You're getting on this mule to enjoy it. Why not spend the time? You've already spent the money. Spend a little time, and you ain't going to believe the difference it's going to make on you. We got a lot of people out there right now that can tell you it don't take long to do it right.
Yeah, so I've got the picture up here. They had sent pictures of the mule all tacked up there. You've got the text message. Do you have any comments that you want to share about it? Anything you wanted to say?
Oh my! I'm telling you, Dave, it's kind of frustrating to see it. And of course, the downside they didn't know, but they pretty much it looks like the majority of people what they do, and they just don't know. No breaching on the animal. Cinches are in the wrong place. The saddle is sitting way up on the scapula, And I showed you all. I showed you this cartilage. Now think about this. We put the saddle way up on a wither of a horse. What's it doing? It's going this way. What's it banging on? Huh? A cartilage. Yes. You can still bend it over the same way. This veterinarian was telling me that he investigates why animals have gone crooked or crippled, and they file an insurance claim. Well, they've gone crippled because they put the saddle too far forward. They've gone crippled because they didn't use a rear cinch on that horse. That, it's not as important to have a real super tight cinch like you do on a mule, but it's still important. And it's just like an oz. He really felt bad. He said, I feel like what have I done to my mule? But you know what he did? He went online and he started looking for information. Of course, there's lots of information. Then he got a hold of my stuff and he started comparing my stuff to some other things. And he went, whoa, what a difference, And so I I just want to be out there to help, Dave.
Yeah. So Bear came back here real quick. He says, "Thank you so much for the advice. Look forward to watching, communicating through the lines." And what I love about Bear, and what I love about the gentleman that you were speaking with is, man, you say this all the time, Steve. You say the past is the past. I'm free at last. The first time I ever heard you say that was with nylon halters, saying, "Folks, you don't want to be using nylon halters on these animals. They're going to be going into the bone and ruining the sensitivity of the mule's animal." And you said, "But here's the thing, folks, you didn't know. So take it, put it up on your wall,
Yeah.
say the past is the past, I'm free at last, and
Oh,
start doing things the right way." And that's what I love
yeah.
about Bear, and that's what I love about the gentleman that you're talking about, that you spoke to earlier today. Is like, hey, let's do it the right way now that we know. So here's a first time ever in Ask Steve. We got a question from me. Not that I have a whole lot to offer, but memory asks a question for Dave. Do you ever ride mules with Steve? And I am proud to say that I have ridden mules with Steve. Let's see if I can get the picture here. I've ridden mules with Steve one time, and let me put the picture up there. There it is, right there. Steve, this is the one that I sent to you. Steve can't see
Uh,
it right now, but
oh,
this is
yeah.
the one that I sent to you. And so that is about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And do you know what I remember from that ride, Steve?
Yeah. What?
Um, for those of you guys who don't know, Steve and I are very, very close. I consider Steve a second father figure to me. I've got a fantastic dad. I love my
Yeah.
dad. But ever so often, you are blessed enough to have somebody else in your life who plays a key role like that. So I've told Steve that, and he knows that I feel that way. But we were riding along, and both Steve and I, we trust Jesus for our salvation. We trust in the Lord. And from that, where you see me riding right there, I asked Steve, I said, "Steve, what is your favorite thing about God? What is the thing that you've learned the most that you appreciate?" He goes, "Forgiveness,
Mm.
God's forgiveness." And just, it set with me. And I've remembered that for the rest of my life. So as much fun as it was to ride Stacy, of course, she's been gone and buried now a few years. That's
Yeah.
Steve's wife's mule that I'm riding. As much fun as that was, it was really cool just to have that, what we call often in the Christian faith, just a God moment there. So do you remember that moment there, Steve?
Oh, yeah. Golly. Yes, Dave. You bet. That's what I call that trail out there. Of course, there's a lot of trails out behind the ranch, but that one particular one we're on, I call it Repentance Trail because I've
Yeah.
gone on that trail and repented a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. So thank you, Memory. I appreciate that. I'm glad I get
Yeah.
to share that get to share that story there.
There we go.
Let's keep moving on here. I've got my question from Bear. We talked about that, and now we've got Celeste Daniels. So Celeste, hopefully you're still here with us because this is your question. And Celeste asks, "Is it true that a gaited mule is much harder to ride and more hyper than a QH mule?" So what I want first is, can you just briefly explain what a gaited mule is, what a QH mule is, if you know what that is, and then answer the question: is it much harder to ride, and are they more hyper than a QH mule?
Oh, well, okay, so a QH mule is a quarter horse mule. So the mother was a quarter horse. The gaited animal, it can be Paso Fino, it could be Fino, it could be Paso, it could be Tennessee Walker, it could be Foxtrotter, it could be in Brazil they used, oh, it'll come to me in a second here. I can't think of it right now. But anyway, a lot of different gaiting. What it is, it's how they walk. So now here's the deal. When you get into the mountains and you're going up the trail and it's rocky and it's steep, the donkey side of that mule is going to slow down, look, see where they got to go and place their feet in place. They're not going to be gaited and be silly. They're going to be looking where they're going. A quarter horse can be really hyper. They can buck pretty darn good, really, because they're hyper about working cattle. And the quarter horse also, you have to remember, it's the line. So your Pepe Sands, your Tivio Chance, lots of different breeds of quarter horse. Some are hotter than others. Some of them are quarter horse for conformation. Some of them are quarter horse for cutting cattle. Some of them are quarter horse for roping. They're bred that way for that particular need. And then when we come into gaited, gaited is just fast, go, go, go. And so they're both nice to ride. I've had both. I've trained both a lot. It just depends on your breeding. How hot you breed is going to make a big difference. I tell you, a lot of folks are going to donkeys because they're usually pretty simple, pretty easy to get along with, and they walk very nice.
One of the clinics that you did at Queen Valley Mule Ranch in 2018, we do a real Susan does a real nice lunch, and I was out there and talking with a gentleman and says, "Man, I'll tell you what." Of course, you said donkeys, but he says, "Man, I'll tell you what. I've been riding horses my whole life, and I went out riding with one of my friends. He says, I got this mule. Go ahead and hop on." He says it was like riding a Cadillac. He's like, I've never ridden anything like it before. It was just smooth,
Yeah.
and it was straightforward. And he goes, I was sold, and now I want to learn as much as I can,
Yeah.
because that's been what a lot of folks have said, right? Just
Oh,
never
yeah.
knew.
Yeah, it's the big thing right now is buy the gaited mules. Well, folks, if they can't side pass in a 10-foot circle, turn on the forehand, turn on the hindquarters, and back up. I don't care how fast they go. Like our question earlier, how do you get them to stop? If they don't have a foundation, it makes no difference how fast they go. They need a foundation. They need to be very reverent of that bit. They need to take and figure that bit is their communication skill,
Yeah.
that they have to learn.
Yeah, very good. So hopefully that helps you there. Celeste gives you a little bit more clarity around that. I know you're here watching. Celeste, after I said that, I hope you're here watching still, Celeste. She types frantically in the comment section, I'm here, I'm here. And she even answered the QH mule question for me, the quarter horse. See, folks, I don't know. I don't know
Yeah,
my mule from my donkey, so to speak. Although I can tell the donkeys because I look for the ears. So I'm
yeah.
still learning, and Steve's still teaching, and we'll just keep going that way. Kenny Phillips chimed in, just said, my mule was in Mardi Gras parade yesterday. Handled
Well,
all the excitement with no problem. That's fun to hear. I like that.
that's good.
Okay, Kayla has a question. Kayla has been just a Steve. I don't know if you remember Kayla's name. I hope you do, because she has just been a fantastic viewer over the
Yeah,
course of the last several weeks. And Kayla, I am
yeah,
so glad that you're here with us,
yeah.
hanging out. She says, hello from Southern California. Still loving my trail light saddle very much. It's been to a few local barrel racing events. Now I have gotten a lot of compliments on it, and my mule is so much happier and performing so well. Can't wait to be able to order your next trail, or to order your trail riding bit next. So that's so nice. I thought we were going to get a question there. We wound up getting a compliment, and I love reading that.
Yeah.
Very fun. Okay, Kevin Albright. Kevin, you have been another one of our
Yeah.
superstars. Love having you here, and love that you're still coming and hanging out with us, and really means a lot to us. So Kevin says, hi guys, our mule kicked me in the leg yesterday. That is not fun. So sorry to hear that. We have had him for going on 2 years, and he never had tried, even when loading him and trimming his feet. It was feed time. He gets just a small amount of low starch, safe
Okay.
choice while the horses are eating their grain. I was trying to get him into his stall with him, which is about 2 horses wide, and you got to come in from behind. I brushed his rear a bit from the side where he couldn't kick to let him know I was coming in. When I
Yeah.
tried to move him over and come in, he
Right.
kicked. What should
Yeah.
I have done? And should I expect this to be a new nasty habit? That's a good question. Kevin, thank you for asking. Steve, what would you have to say?
It's not a new nasty habit. It's him thinking he needs to protect his feed. Say something first, Kevin. They're all into their feed. I had a big old mule by the name of Tom, and he was in his stall eating his feed, and he was just there. And I had that mule for 12 years at that time. And I come up behind him and just touched him on the hip. He tapped me just a little bit right on my thigh. just a little bit, just enough to tell me this is my feed, this is my area. All your mule was doing, I am sure, was protecting himself. If I would have said, "Hey, Tom," and walked up with my voice rather than just hearing gravel moving, he most likely wouldn't have kicked at me. And I can tell you that's the only time that Tom did. And I think it almost looked like he had a, "Oh, geez, Steve, I'm sorry," look on his face, But yeah, he was a great mule. But hey, if that mule wants to kick you, he'd kick you anywhere he wants, anywhere he's standing. And they know exactly where you do. Don't worry about it. Not a bad habit. It's not something he's going to start. Just always, when you're walking up behind him, you know, always remember they're going to kick out first, straight back, and then they'll cow kick as forward. Sometimes they kick sideways. So when you're doing this, oh, wait a minute.
What's going on, Steve?
Long day here.
Is Jess waking you up in the middle of the night? Your little border collie?
Yeah. No, he's actually been sleeping clear through. I just was up about 4 o'clock this morning, so I've been going at it.
Yeah.
But going back to this, I wouldn't worry about it. You just make sure that you talk to him when you come up, and if he's got his head down in that feed, make sure he brings his head up and says hi before you tap him on the butt. I think he just thought you were another animal, and folks, you got to hear this. These mules don't need these carbohydrates. They don't need them. They don't need that sugar content. It's like giving cocaine to a cocaine addict. They don't need it. You just go ahead and maybe feed them a nice grass pellet or something like that, something different. But they can plumb get silly in a short time with just a short amount of carbohydrates.
So one question I've got, Steve. Kevin said had the mule years, no problems like this. You'd think you'd get to a point where it's going to be safe to be around them and you don't have to worry about this sort of thing. When do you get to that safe point where you can feel comfortable and have confidence that nothing's going to happen?
Ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. You got a bumper on the front of your truck and a bumper on the back. A bumper for when you make a mistake and a bumper in the back when somebody else makes a mistake. These things are going to happen. Be comfortable. I don't care. Even my wife's just solid, good old mule. She passed away at 28 years old. She was solid. But I do very little relaxing on these animals. They're an equine. Flight and fright comes in. It makes no difference if they're 2 years old or 22 years old. These things happen, and you just got to be prepared for it. They're an equine. They're on the bottom of the food list. We're a predator. We're a human. We're on the top of the paint. We're always going to be at odds with them. So just don't expect them to be a puppet. It's not going to happen.
So Kevin chimed back in here. He says, I was talking and currying his butt before I tried to move him over.
Okay. Well,
maybe a conversation with Kevin a little bit more.
Yeah, probably most likely. But I'm just going to say it would be really amazing to think that the mule would do it again. He just didn't want to be bothered during his feed. Folks, when they're feeding, I do not touch them. I stay away from them. I let them feed. They can get pretty tough when it comes down to taking care of their feed. And I know that. The only time that I'm around them is when I'm graining them, when I'm saddling them, getting ready to get on the road. Do you hear that? Only time I grain them is when I'm getting ready to go out on the trail and hit a pretty tough ride. That way, that grain gets burned off. But you feed it to them every day, it builds up, boom, So, Kevin, darn it all, I'm sorry that you got kicked there. It happens. I'm glad you still got the use of your leg. But I was just kind of going over things as to what usually happens. But just do yourself a favor. When they're feeding folks, leave them alone. Let them finish their feed, do the currying and stuff later on. If I'm going to be getting ready to start saddling, I'll put a morale, I'll put a nose bag on their nose, the feed bag. I'll let them be chewing on that grain while I'm brushing with them on the shoulder to start with and working my way back, throwing the saddle on. They're feeding away on the grain. I've never had a problem at that time frame. I have had a problem when they've had their main feed and they think they're trying to protect it. So
Well, that's good. I'm glad we had that conversation. I think that's pretty good, and helpful to go through. We've got a couple more comments here. We got Jen Blake from Cave Creek. She says, "Sorry, I'm late. I hope I didn't miss much." Of course, there's always something going on here, but the good news is there's always a replay, so you can go back and you can watch whatever you missed, Jen. Jan, we're glad you're here. Jan says, "I wanted to tell you that Bunny, my saddle donkey, loves her new britchin," and we love hearing that. That's a lot of fun. Let's see here. We've got Cindy chiming in. Hi, Steve, Illinois. Cindy's saying hi from Illinois. We've got, okay, so Haley says, "Hey, Steve, the beta head stalls that my dad got from you a few months ago, working out well. He really likes them, and he loves the mule conchos, and he said that he highly recommends them to anybody that needs a good quality head stall." So that's nice to hear. Thank you so much, nice. Haley. Yeah. Love that. Yeah. All right, let's see here. Nadine, hi from New Hampshire. So we're all the way over there on the East Coast double time now with some New York and Virginia. Yeah. Let's see here. Linda Dickman saying Twig from Riverside, California. Hello. Good to have you. West Coast all accounted for. Yolanda Poland from the Netherlands. Thank the Lord I made it. Yes, Yolanda, it would not be a classic online mule clinic if you weren't here. We're glad that you're here.
There you are.
Beth Souter says, "Hi from New Hampshire. Love these sessions. I'm learning so much." Beth, thank you. Yeah. Really appreciate that. As much as we love showing up, I'll tell you what, it really is nice to know that we do it whether we get folks saying it's helping or not, because we know that it's helping. But it really does affirm that, hey, we should keep doing these when folks just take a moment to say that it's helping. So I appreciate that. Edie Wick says, "My come along lead is working super." And you're going to like this. "No more being dragged with my mammoth." Thank you so much. That come along rope really does work wonders.
Night and day. Yeah.
Yolanda says, "I do not work with a lasso. I work with a serretta." She knows that because all the other stuff she does not know. What's a serretta?
You got me there.
Yolanda, what's a serretta? Am I saying that correctly? Let us know.
Yeah, I know there's a riata. That would be Spanish for rope, which is short for lariat. Huh.
We'll see what she says. We'll see what she says. Let's see. Celeste came back. He said we could feed them. So Celeste had the question earlier. Let me see here. Where did it go? She said, "Bear with me. Is it true that gaited mule is much harder to ride and more hyper than a quarter horse mule?" And then she says down here at the bottom, he said we could feed them a grass pellet. Is alfalfa okay?
If we're talking about riding them right away where you can burn it off, that wouldn't be so bad. But the problem is the alfalfa is still really heavy carbonated with carbohydrates. And plus that, the downside of the alfalfa, and if you've ever seen it, and I have, they build up a stone from all of the minerals that's in the alfalfa. And there's been many an equine die because they get these stones in their urinary tract and even in their large and small intestines. And so that's something you want to consider is the health of them. But if you're just doing it to give them the alfalfa for you getting ready to go ride and they're going to burn it off, good. But never are we going to want to feed any kind of carbohydrates that the mule just stands all day long and eats the carbohydrates and he's got nothing to do and he's got all this energy and bad news building up in him, So you're going to feed it and go ride, good for you. You're going to feed it and let him stand, don't do it.
I'm still pretty thin, but I'll tell you what, sometimes I eat those carbohydrates and go and stand myself.
Yeah. Yeah, my problem is the carbohydrates are sitting here too much now.
Yeah, they make themselves right at home. Karen Whitford says, "Karen Prim Springs, Karen Prim, Springs, Tennessee. My saddle from you is arriving before the donkey. Hey, that's going to be cool. Get that,
Yeah.
be all ready to go. And Yolanda says, yeah. She says, I was saying it correctly. So I said, Yolanda, go ahead and send us a picture. I want to check it out. And maybe we'll bring it up on next week's broadcast. The next question that I got here, this one comes from Keith. He sent us an email. He says, my mule always wants to be front of the pack. When we are riding, he gets mad when he's not. What can I do to stop this habit?
Okay, so they do that because they like to see everything out in front of them. They don't. I think they don't completely trust the leader in the front, and so it comes down to this. I don't know what type of bit that you're using, but anytime you're training, you want to use a snaffle bit. So what you're going to do is we tend to pull on them to make them slow down. You don't want to do that. You want to take your hands and go right, left, right brain, listen to me, left brain, listen to me, right brain, listen to me, left brain, listen to me. And if they don't slow up and they don't frame themselves out, increase the intensity. Right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. And if they don't want to slow up, they don't want to listen to you, increase the intensity. Right, left, right, left, right, left, right, really fast. And folks, it's not much different than you coming down off of a hill and increasing the intensity on your brake of your truck with your trailer. So now it's also going to depend on your bit. If you are using a finished bit with shanks, that puts a lot of pressure upon that tongue, a lot of pressure upon that palate. So you don't want to do that. You want to go back to the snaffle. And of course, I always suggest my mule rider's martingale.
Very good. So I'm putting a link in the comment section to your new bit article that we talked on early. I posted it
Good.
earlier in the broadcast. I'm going to post it again. We talk about the martingale, the mule rider's martingale a little bit there. We talk about all the variety of bits for driving, for riding. We talk about the bits that you use for driving and riding. So it's a really great article. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
I've got
You're right. There's a lot to it, right? That
Yeah.
article
Oh,
that
yeah.
you did there, you're right. I'm saying to myself, hitting it right on the money, Dave. You're right. There's so much more to it. And that article is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. You're right, exactly.
So the next question that I got here, this one comes from, let's see here, comes from Dorsey Crow. And Dorsey Crow says, I hear mules will get revenge sooner or later for ill treatment. Steve, is this true?
No, it's ridiculous. A matter of fact, Dave, that's part of the book that I'm writing right now called 4 Decades of Breaking Mule Myths. Don't listen to that. I tell you what, I have had people tell me that don't do something the mule don't like, he'll get even with you. That's not right. Oh, don't kick a mule. Don't slap a mule, he'll get even with you. Well, now wait a minute. Let me show you a picture. Here's this mare, and she's the leader, and this young mule comes up and says, hey, I want to be your buddy. She pins her ears and says, don't do that. You stay over there. He still keeps coming. I want to be your buddy. She pins her ears. She swishes her tail. She says, I told you. I asked you. Now I'm telling you. Don't come no closer. The mule keeps on coming. He spins and kicks him. I have seen those mules follow that leader all over the place. If you don't get after them, then you're going to be in trouble, and you're going to be like a lot of these kids with their pants hanging down with their underwear showing. Back when we used to give what we call a whipping, a spanking, now they call it abuse. And what do we got in the schools now? And I'll get off of that. But listen, folks, you're going to have to not spare the rod, spoil the child. I'm not saying beat the mule. I'm just saying get after him. Will they wait for you? I've never seen it ever, ever, ever. Those kind of folks that tell that particular thing about a mule, that's the same ones that say you got to have a 2x4 to get their attention first, then train on them. I don't believe that. I believe that these mules respect leadership. If you be a strong leader, you'll get her done.
That's good. That's a good word. I've got another question here. Before I get to that, I just want to welcome anyone that's tuning in for the first time or has hopped in later on in this broadcast and is kind of wondering, hey, what's going on here? What we call this is an online live mule and donkey clinic Q&A. And so my name's Dave, and this is Steve Edwards, and we show up every single week and just answer as many questions as we can based upon, well, Steve answers them, I ask them, and Steve just pulls in from over 4 decades of knowledge, 4 decades of experience, 4 decades of broken bones, 4 decades of hospital visits, 4 decades of amazing rides. And so that's what we're doing here. So if you have a question that you'd love for us to take a look at and answer before the just after the top of the hour, put it in the comment section, and we'll get to it. And if you just want to say hi, we want to know that you're here. So just say hello, even as we get close to the end of this particular broadcast. The last question that I have in the can, ready to go, Steve, is from Nicole on Facebook. Hi, Steve from Oregon. I've been ground training my John since he hit the ground, and even though he is not near old enough to pull or carry weight, at what age can I start having him drag things like a log or a tire? Also, I have always felt that the equine is happier with a buddy, but lately I've had people telling me that my mule doesn't need to have a pasture mate to be happy if I spend a lot of time with him. Is this true? I've been waiting to travel, and one equine would be easier than two. Steve, what do you have to say? This is a good one.
Oh yeah, but folks, these animals don't need another pasture mate. I got people that got themselves a goat, and now they can't go anywhere without that goat. That mule won't leave that goat. Same thing, Shetland ponies, whatever. They think, oh, I got this pasture mate. That's nice. Now you just become second on the totem pole. That's the way it is. They don't need it. You spend the time with them, it'll pay off in dividends. Now I can also tell you that 4 months later, after you haven't spent any time with them, we'll be gone all summer long, and come back and hitch the mule up or ride them right off just like it was yesterday. Uh, they don't need a pasture mate. You're gonna have yourself in trouble if you get one.
So, I mean,
So
but
go ahead.
don't you want the mule? Don't you want the mule to feel like he's got a buddy? Don't you want the mule to not be alone? Don't you want the mule to be able to go out and even go into pasture and get everything that he needs? Don't you want that for your animal? Isn't that what he wants?
Yeah, well, I want my animal to have the best, and it comes out right off the bat is respect, for me, and looking at me for leadership, and then looking at me to be a friend as well. You'll see two animals together, shoulder to shoulder, nibbling on each other, enjoying each other's company, and that's what they like too. But if you get a pasture mate, everywhere you go, you're going to have to take that pasture mate, and then it ends up being a lot of trouble, man. I know some people hurt by it and this sort of thing else, but deal with it.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Kevin pops back in. So, Kevin, glad you're still with us. Do you think one pint of low starch is a safe choice feed? Is it enough to mess up the mule? Sorry. Do you think one pint of low starch safe choice feed is enough to mess up a mule? We just like to have him something while the horse eats.
Sure. I mean, you can even give them some pellets of some kind that doesn't have the carbohydrates. Just watch and see. If the animal starts looking for monsters on the ground, if your mule starts showing some improper behavior, back off of that. I will guarantee you, I don't feed any of my mules any type of carbohydrates until I get ready to go for a ride. So that I just have had far better luck with it. If you're going to give them something, give them a little bit of hay. But I stay away from the carbohydrates. It builds up. It's like I said, it's like cocaine to a cocaine addict. Is what I've been told. It's a good example. It can sure be tough on you.
I misspoke. I actually have one more question. I want to get to it because if we get this one done, then we got all the questions done that had come in. And so This one will be the last one. Oh, Gary Green says, Gary from Tularosa is listening and learning. We love to hear that, Gary.
The
Thank you
donkey
so
man.
much
The donkey man.
for saying
Point,
hello. Yeah.
point oh, I lost Kevin. Point Kevin toward the article Mules Can't Stand Prosperity.
Okay, I'll take care of that. Kevin, look for that here in a second. That link to that article in the comments section. So the last question I got here from Lou in Illinois. I have a mule. He does great with groundwork. He loads great, takes the saddle great. He lets me touch him anywhere. If you get in the saddle, he blows. The third time we were in the saddle for a while, it took an hour to get him to stop screaming and running. We have got on him 5 times. He blows every time. The fits are getting shorter once we are off, when we have to start all over and stepping up slow and down, leaning on him, building the trust. He lets us step back up. Suggestions.
Take him to a chiropractor and see if he's got a problem. Because there's something wrong there. Something is making the mule uncomfortable. If you've done all that groundwork and they're doing really good, what's going on? Is your back cinch tight? Is your front cinch loose? Are you using a breeching? Those are key things. Remember, your horse saddles have a twist at the 6th and 7th rib and put pressure there. So I'm thinking that the mule is in some kind of discomfort. Something's going on there. If you want to send me some pictures of the mule saddled, I'd be happy to look at the pictures from nose to tail, tip of the ears to bottom of the feet. Look those all over. Let me see the pictures and see how you got him saddled. But I would take him to a chiropractor. And the other thing I would do is always, always, always get your dental work first done. That's really important. How old is this mule? Do we know?
That'll be a good question. So let's see here. Lou, when you hear the answer here, go ahead, post in the comment section for next week, or give Steve a call, 602-999-6853. As a matter of fact, if y'all have any questions, Steve loves talking tack, talking saddles, talking shop. You may get his voicemail. I get his voicemail on occasion, but Steve does a good job of calling back. So Lou, if you're watching this and you want to follow up, go ahead and give him a call. And folks, if you do have questions, you can send him an email, steve@muleranch.com. You can call him, 602-999-6853. He will be the one that you talk to. If you send a message to support@muleranch.com, I'll be the one that you talk to. And a lot of times I can point you to where you need to go. And then the times that I can't, I get Steve on the case. So that's it. That's everything for this week. We've got, let's see here. Steve Doran just says, great hat. What's the story on the hat there, Steve?
Well, it's a buckaroo hat. Steve Doran, that's my buddy from, he's actually head of the psychology system in the prison system over here in Florence. And so the hat is a buckaroo hat. It's a buckaroo style hat. It's usually the buckaroo cowboys that are in Nevada, Northern California, the Sierra Nevadas, and then Wyoming. They ride with this kind of a hat. We from down south here, we call them pancake hats. They call our hats down here taco hats because they're like this. But it's a buckaroo style hat, tipped up in the back, because usually when these animals are bucking, they're bending the back of the hat. So that's kind of tradition. But I've got different hats depending on what role I'm playing, what state I'm in, So there you are, Steve. Hey, good to hear from you, my brother. He sends me scriptures all the time.
That's awesome. I love that. That's fantastic. We'll end it with this. Micah Kinney, thank you for the comment. Micah says, love these chats. I always pick up something I didn't know or didn't think about. And that's really why we're doing it. Steve and I were talking earlier today. We had a question come in on mule riders martingale, and we can talk about that later. Folks wanted to know, hey, can I just get the bit and not get the mule riders martingale? In the short end of that, Steve, if I remember correctly, was look, the bit, the martingale, and the bridle, they're meant to work together in conjunction, and you don't get the benefit of one without the combination of all three. So we could talk more about that, but it came in, And as I was, listening to Steve talk, I was writing it down and repeating it back to make sure that it sounded, correct. And Steve goes, "That's it. That's it. We want folks to know. I'll keep telling them as much as I can, and hopefully I'll get everything out there before I pass on and get to go be with Jesus." And
Yeah.
I said, "Steve, well, you and I will both do that together, and then YouTube will let it live on long after both of us have gone. So we're going
Yeah.
to get all this stuff loaded up onto YouTube
Yeah.
and make sure that it reaches people long after, because these are God's creations, and we want
That's
to
right.
enjoy them as God's gift to us, but we also want to respect them and treat
Yes.
them well as good stewards of what God has given us." Steve, any final words for today?
Yeah, Dave, I've got two prayer requests for all you prayer warriors out there. Number one, my neighbor up here, Dama, she's from Costa Rica, and she became an American citizen after 5 years of hard work. So good for her. She just didn't bust her way in. She did everything right. But yesterday she got hit by a rattlesnake, and she's in the hospital. She's doing well. But folks, if you all can, ask God to work with those doctors and nurses and stuff to minister to her, that would be a wonderful thing. And then, as many of you probably know, and now if you don't, you know now, is I'm a firefighter, and I'm not a full-time firefighter. I'm out here as what's the word I'm looking for? Um,
Volunteer?
Volunteer, that's the word I want. And I volunteer a lot. I mean, I go to all kinds of things. But Dave, I was just on a heartbreaker, a car accident. A young man, 29 years old, died in that accident. And then his friend with him in a truck, they didn't have their seat belts on. And he got a horrible a compression on his head, neck from hitting the windshield. So if you guys could lift those families up, I'd appreciate it. Dave and I, when it comes down to telling you that we have a Savior, we don't mind doing it. We're not here to impress you by any means, but I believe that there's a lot of people out there, Dave, and you know it, that are prayer warriors and that
Yeah.
will pray for these people, and there you are. So y'all have a great one. I'm going to be moving cows the next couple of days, and my border collie puppy is going to be down working with me. I got some surprises coming up here this next year, Dave. Some kind of unique things that people need to be seeing, and
Ah,
we'll video it. People are going to see some things. You're going to see me working cows. A lot of people wonder if my saddles can, drag a calf to the fire and this sort of thing. Well, you're going to see it. There's going to be lots of some new things coming up this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. So the
awesome.
main thing is, folks, get a hold of me. Call me, email Dave and text me. I'm going to tell you it's going to be rare when I pick up the phone and say hello, but you leave a message, I'll get back to you within 24 hours, guaranteed.
Yep. Very good. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you all, honestly, to give a little bit of time on a Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. It means a lot to us. We will see you guys next week. God bless. Take care. And go out there, have some fun with them animals. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Send us pictures.